and welcome to How Did I Get Here? This episode tells my story of how did I get to the present moment. May you feel inspired by this story. I hope you hear about the beauty and utility of the nomadic life. I'm sending you love. Now here's my response to how did I get here? I think I'll start with 2016. I had recently left my work in neuroscience research in California and made the jump into technology. And I had been working for a tech company for about a year when I took a vacation to the island of Kauai, which is in a Hawaiian island. I was born on Oahu but had never spent any time on Kauai. And I made a friend who was a helicopter pilot. And so he invited me over for about a week's stay, and my coworker joined me. And we spent a week traveling around this magical island of Kauai. And when we got on the plane to head back to California, as I was looking out the window of the airplane, I thought to myself, I have to figure out a way to come back here and live and work for a month. So when I returned to California, I think it was about springtime of 2016, I decided to put together a proposal to give to my boss and to the CFO of my company about why they ought to let me work remotely on Kauai for a month, and how allowing me to work on Kauai for a month would save the company money. This is before working remote was the dominant way of working in the world. So I presented it to my boss, who presented it to the CFO, and then I was off on a plane a couple weeks later, and I found a small one-bedroom house to rent, actually on Craigslist. It was quite good at that time on Kauai. And the couple I rented from was taking a road trip to California. And I worked there for a month. Part of my territory was Hawaii at the time. And I remember talking to CTOs of school districts, and they could hear roosters in the background. And it would actually create this deeper connection between us. So 1 month turned into 5 months, and I worked remotely on Kauai throughout the summer and into the fall. But I kept my rental property in California, the house that I was renting. And I was able to Airbnb it and also have some friends stay there. So it worked out economically for me at the time. And then in 2017, 2018, and 2019, I returned to Kauai and would work remotely anywhere from 1 to 2 months. And after that first 5 months in Kauai in 2016, I realized I wanted to work remotely. And in 2017, I decided to find companies that had fully remote work programs and to apply. So I took a role in 2017, also in tech sales. And I worked for a remote company based out of New York. And I really enjoyed the flexibility. It allowed me to go back to Kauai and spend time working remotely. And I had quite a few of my coworkers from that company join me as well, which was really wonderful to be able to work together in person on this magical island. And then in late 2019, I had taken another trip to Amsterdam for the holidays. I had a friend who I met in California working at this first tech company who then moved to Amsterdam. And I really loved flying on Christmas Day to Amsterdam to visit her. And then I would travel around to different countries. So I think in 2018, I went to Copenhagen. And then in 2019 to January of 2020, I traveled to Prague and Berlin. And I just had such an amazing time being able to work in Prague and work in Berlin and also experience different cultures and architecture and explore Europe. So when I returned back to the US in 2020 after this last trip to Amsterdam, I decided that I wanted to travel even more than I was at that time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get this together, which meant that I was going to start saving more money and live way below my means, so to say. And what I mean by that is I decided to not renew the lease on my car and to get a bike and to ride around the city I was living in, Los Angeles, which actually was quite easy because the city that I lived in is Venice Beach. And I was able to walk to a market just a couple blocks away. The ocean was 15 minutes away. And I had 4 friends who literally lived on the same street as me, which was just magical as an adult because I didn't have to spend hours in an Uber or a car when I had it to spend time with loved ones. And so I got rid of my car, I was riding my bike around a lot, and I started saving more and more money in my emergency fund. And I had a friend a couple years before 2020 who met with me, who's a financial coach, and she helped me tighten up my budget and be able to save more for things like vacation, emergency fund, investments. And so at the end of 2020, I decided to take a trip to Mexico. I think it was about maybe 12 days. And I met a new friend there, and I had a really good time in Tulum. I also had a friend from California meet me there. And it was quite beautiful, and I really enjoyed the mangroves and speaking Spanish. And when I returned to the US in January of, sorry, I got my dates wrong, I just realized. It's interesting. It all kind of blends together, huh? No, that's right. Yeah, so the end of 2020. I went to Tulum, and then I arrived back in Los Angeles January of 2021. And at that time, Americans were attacking the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And when I realized that, I decided I didn't want to stay in the United States for a while. I wanted to travel back to Mexico. And the new friend I met in Tulum shared that he was going to the Pacific coast of Oaxaca, to a place I had never heard of before, called Mazunte. And I had considered going to Todos Santos, which is in Baja, Mexico. But I didn't have any friends who were traveling there, and I wanted to travel with people I felt comfortable with or already knew. I decided to buy a ticket to Mazunte, and I left 1 week after returning from Mexico. I packed a bag for a week because I booked a ticket for a week. I wasn't sure about Mazunte, and this was also a new friend, so I wasn't sure what our friendship would look like. Well, 1 week turned into 7 months in this remote beach town. And during that time, I was building a mental health tech company that was male focused. And during that time, which I started in 2019, but became a business in 2020. And in 2021, living in the state of Oaxaca in Mexico, I realized that I could live from just about anywhere with decent internet and be able to build a business. I was able to work with an engineer who was offshore. I was able to talk to the advisors that I had for the company I was building. And I was also able to get the app on the App Store to get users to download it and to start getting user feedback. So I thought, okay, I don't need to be in Los Angeles. So after 7 months of living in Mexico, I returned to Los Angeles. Again, I had kept the property I was renting, and at the end of my time in Mazunte, I had let my mom know that she could move into the 1 bedroom and live there because she was living in a 2 bedroom apartment with a roommate at the time. And so she had moved into my house, I think 2 months before I returned to California. And when I returned, I just realized within that first month being back that I no longer wanted to live in Los Angeles, and I wanted to live in a smaller community with less stress, less what I call hustle, less desire for material things, so much so that the culture is living paycheck to paycheck in a lot of ways. And I didn't want to be asked what I did for work as the first question when I met anyone, whether that was at a restaurant, at a coffee shop, at a party, anytime I was meeting a new person. And so I let my mom know that I was going to be leaving the country and letting my landlord know that I no longer wanted to keep the house in Los Angeles. And so I started slowly to sell everything. This wasn't a rushed decision in a sense. I was quite methodical about getting rid of my things, very organized, which is something that I enjoy about myself. And I downloaded an app where I could sell items and donate them. I met with friends regularly to let them know I'd be leaving the country for an unplanned amount of time. And I knew that I could live out of a couple of bags because I had taken one Patagonia duffel bag and one carry-on with me when I moved or when I went to Mexico. And that one bag was meant for 1 week, and I lived out of it for 7 months. So I knew I didn't need a lot of things. I ended up leaving with 4 bags, 1 bag full of clothes, 1 bag with kitchen items, because I enjoy cooking. I'm not necessarily a great cook, but I'm learning. I took a travel blender and some knives and some spices, so I had a bag full of things that I could use in the kitchen. And then I had a backpack where I had shoes, yoga blocks, some exercise bands, and toiletries. And then I had a small backpack that I had bought in Mexico with my laptop, my wallet, a water bottle kind of, and some other loose items. And I left. I decided to become a full-time nomad December 1 of 2020 and move to Guatemala. I had heard about Lecatitlan, Guatemala from some friends in Mazunte, Mexico in 2021. And I had also heard the internet was a little bit better there. So I didn't have a plan on how long I would stay. I arrived in Guatemala in December and lived at different pueblos around the lake for 7 months. Currently, now, I am in Los Angeles as a nomad in my own country, which has been so wild. I've had to ask for a lot of help to find places to live, to house sit for friends, sometimes to get around town because Ubers are so expensive here right now. But it's been a huge growth period for me. I have decided to dissolve the current version of my mental health company that I've spent the last almost 4 years building, and to move on to helping people one-on-one with their emotional architecture, and to potentially help some other founders grow their companies. I'm going to keep traveling. I think I might go to Mexico or Portugal. I mean, I don't have a specific plan, which is really exciting. And also, freedom freedom can be scary too, because the other nomadic travelers I met, and myself as well, sometimes it's almost like the possibilities, there's so many, where do we go? And what I realized being back in Los Angeles for this visit as a nomad is there are a few things that are really important to me when traveling. One is either meeting a friend in the country that I'm going to, or traveling with a friend or romantic partner to the next place I go to, as well as being close to the ocean. I was born in Hawaii, and being close to the ocean is something that I value. And most of my life, I've had the opportunity to live close to the ocean, and I want to keep that as much as possible as I continue to travel. That's how I got to this present moment. And I'm trying to live my life to the fullest, truly trying to be present in each moment and be non-resistant to whatever rises.